how do we update our software as leaders, our ability to think, our ability to feel, and our ability to act differently. So the same way you get the prompt on your phone, update software, you need to constantly do that. It's everyday work. You cannot lead if you don't know yourself and you don't know the people that are working around you.
Right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Organisational Behaviour with Siphiwe Moyo. I'm back. Whoever doubted my comeback abilities, I am back. My name is Siphiwe Moyo. And today I have the honor and the privilege. You know, when you are fascinated by a certain topic and then you go get the person who was at the forefront of having that topic studied in your country, it's just an incredible experience. I have the exceptional guest today. Dr. Sharon Munyaka is registered with the HPCSA in Industrial and Organizational Psychology. For those of us who are outside of South Africa, that's the Health Professional Council of South Africa. She's a firm believer in focusing on what is right with people, and you'll see that coming through in some of the things that we will speak about. She works at an individual, team, and organizational level. She is one of the pioneers of research in positive organizational scholarship at the Nelson Mandela University. So what an honor. Sharon, welcome.
Thank you. And I'm so glad you are feeling excited about this topic.
I am.
Wow.
What excited you many years about positive scholarship?
Yeah, people get surprised. Like, how? Candi, when did you do your PhD? 2012. I mean, God, I know, black don't crack. I know.
It certainly doesn't.
So, for me, I've always believed in people. I have been curious about what drives us as humans. And in my undergrad, I was doing, broad psychology. So I studied a BA in psychology, and I thought, maybe clinical. But I was like, nah, I got too much sunshine. I need to understand a little bit better what goes on with people in the world of work. So did my master's. It was cool, got a little bit into that. But at my PhD level, I started hearing about this positive organizational scholarship. I'm like, what is that? I like it. I don't know what it is, but I like it. And that's how I got enrolled into it. And some of you might know Professor Andre Boshoff, an emeritus professor at University of Stellenbosch. And he was really excited about this area of work and was looking for guinea pigs. And I said, me, I want.
Nice.
So that's how I got into it.
That is so fascinating. But I think I'm being rude because of my excitement. Maybe just to take it one step back, for those who don't know you, how do you normally introduce yourself? Where do you grow up? How do you end up being such a preeminent person in our country?
Wow. So first of all, I always say to people, I'm a daughter of the continent. So I was born in Harare in Zimbabwe many years ago. Came to South Africa as a bushy-tailed young 21-year-old. Yay, met a man in the Eastern Cape.
Enkosi Puti.
Oh, Mr. Eastern Cape, sana wandi yenza ndibone lights.
Yeah.
So, became a daughter of the Eastern Cape, and it's been my home. I'm now based in Johannesburg, so I'm Munyaka by cow. And really just someone who loves to be in different communities. When I go to East Africa, they say, hey man, Munyaka is an East African name. I say, I'll take it. Just give me land,
That's all.
So I'm a daughter of the continent and based in South Africa, but working globally.
My surname is the same. So my surname is very prominent in Zim and in East Africa. So it's very fascinating to hear that background story. Do you think workplaces need transformation? Do you think workplaces need to focus on what is good with people?
Absolutely. So my starting place is always what is right with people, and it's a default setting. My father always used to say, man, this child just sees things as being beautiful. And I had a hunch that, I think in the workplace, if people are happy, if people have an environment where there's goodness, they can actually thrive. But now we needed to find the data that supports that. And so positive organizational behavior, positive organizational scholarship became that. And I've contributed in that thinking by providing empirical evidence, to support that.
There are many people who might have your broader psychological background who feel that the positive scholarship thing, it's a bit wishy-washy, it's a bit maybe too much focus on positive emotions to the point that we actually do need negative emotions in our lives, and they've often felt that the positive scholarship takes it too far.
So I think you are describing the Pollyanna effect.
Yes.
So people criticize positive psychology paradigms for that. But actually, we are not saying there's no negativity. But what we're saying is, what is the starting point? Because if we're looking at abundance, we are recognizing that when we start off with what is good, it gives us the capacity to also see and work those things that are difficult. So I'll give you an example. Your child comes home with a report card. The report card is full of A's, but there's an F in one subject. What are you going to see? The F jumps out. So you're saying, fail. How could you fail? But you forget that all the other subjects have got a good pass. So what we're saying in positive organizational psychology or scholarship or post-organizational behavior or the positive psychology paradigm is look at all those passes and ask your child, so my child, what happened? How did you manage these A's? When I look at the subject where you failed, what happened? What could you have used from what you did here to enable you to pass? So you're taking capacities from the positive to the negative areas.
That's incredible. Generally, what led you to become an organizational psychologist? Is it that I think you were speaking about, obviously, your undergrad and your master's were in broader psychology, and it is that period where you were hearing about positive scholarship that switched the pendulum for you?
Yes, absolutely. Because I was looking for a study that would resonate with who I am. So one of the things that I was very clear on, so maybe just a little bit back towards why the PhD.
Yes.
So this is me, first year at university, and there's a graduation ceremony, and there are people wearing these red gowns. I'm like, how? Why are those ones wearing the fancy velvet-looking gowns? May I also want? And it was a running joke in my family at home where I said, I also want to wear that red gown. I didn't even understand what it was all about. And so it's something I looked forward to, right? And now when I got the opportunity, I was clear. My PhD was not going to be something that I just put on a shelf. It needed to be a living study that I use in my work. So I looked for something that resonated.
With over 20 years experience, I think you have, I don't understand where you get the 20 years because you look 30. With over 20 years experience, could you share maybe some of your highlights generally? Are you a corporate person? Are you a full-time academic? And what are the things that you have seen that have shaped your understanding of workplace dynamics?
So I keep going back to who I am as an individual. So I navigate the world with curiosity. And what curiosity has led me to is different places. I do work in academia, so I'm a guest lecturer at business schools. I come and I speak to master's programs specific to industrial psychology. But I also work with corporates. And it could be around visioning a new organization that they're wanting to create. I work with individuals, coaching. I work in the nonprofit sector as well. I am even involved in agroecology, so which is a new field I'm, getting into, and land restoration and just understanding that field. And it's really around large systems, transformation. And what is the connector between those different sectors? It's the ability to remain curious, to be courageous, and to transform spaces where people work one conversation at a time. Yeah.
I think your PhD research investigated the relationship between authentic leadership, psychological capital, psychological climate, team commitment, and the intention to quit. In the podcast, it's an organizational behavior podcast, so we do love at least anchoring in sound theory, but we are more geared to workplaces. But just as an overall understanding, without maybe going too much detail into your academia, what were you trying to find in your research?
So I was trying to understand the role of leaders. I was trying to understand how we create workspaces that are thriving. And now you'll hear about well-being, you'll hear about thriving workspaces. So the leader plays a significant role, and I looked at authentic leadership as an example. So if I am self-aware, I understand who I am. And that's the premise of authentic leadership. There's lots of theory around that. So as a leader, knowing who I am, how do I then build the capacity to support the people that I lead? So the psychological capital, talking about, your hope, your resilience, your confidence, your self-efficacy. And if you go into my study, you'll find all of these different definitions of the variables, the team commitment. And the last variable that I looked at was intention to quit. Because people leave organizations, people leave managers, and you think, but why would you leave such a fantastic opportunity? And there are lots of things that happen. So for me, I wanted to understand, what is the role of the leader? How do they show up? What are the conditions that they're creating? And how does that play out in terms of people's decision-making around staying or leaving?
So I'm suspecting, therefore, that if I'm a leader who's self-aware and therefore being able to self-correct where I'm not the best, it actually helps with my intentions to quit.
Absolutely, because what you're trying to do is to inspire hope in people that you're leading, but you also need hope for yourself. You're trying to inspire optimism in the people that you lead, but also for yourself. And if I think about COVID, a leader who is self-aware is the one who would have made it versus that leader who is not able to say to his people, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know the future of our organization. But what I do know is my commitment to doing the best that I can and keep you updated. So you'll see that the type of leaders that we need, the capacity of leaders to navigate complexity is so critical. So my PhD is still so relevant right now because what I am putting forward when I work with leaders is, how do we update our software as leaders, our ability to think, our ability to feel, and our ability to act differently? So the same way you get the prompt on your phone, update software, we need to constantly do that. It's everyday work. You cannot lead if you don't know yourself and you don't know the people that are working around you.
You know what excited me the first time I discovered this thing called psychological capital, and I think I've told you this before. I was like a kid at the candy store. I was like, oh my God. It's just because I think generally when people hear concepts such as hope, such as optimism, such as resiliency, there has always been a superficial understanding that these are the wishy-washy motivational speaker mumbo-jumbo stuff. But it turns out this construct, PsyCap, firstly, it's proper stuff that can be measured and that can be, I don't know if there's a word called cultivatable, that you can develop and cultivate, right?
Yes.
And that for me blew my mind. So we can measure hope.
Yes.
We can measure optimism.
Yes.
And the more hopeful and optimistic I am as a leader, it affects my team.
100%. And your ability to have the staying power, because like with resilience, which is part of PsyCap, and Luthans is one of the proponents of, psychological capital, you will see the more hope I have, the more resilience I have, the more self-efficacy I have, the better I can lead. So as leaders, it's so important for us to keep on upgrading our software because if we don't understand what's going on for us And there's a quote that I love by Bill O'Brien. The success of an intervention is dependent on the interior condition of the intervener. So my interior condition is reliant on my self-awareness. If I don't know what's going on for me, how do I know what to upgrade? My ability to have hope that, the optics don't look great right now. We're losing money, but we've got good people. So I have the confidence to say, how do we pivot to a new industry? How do we say to our people, we might all need to tighten our belts for the next 6 months, but we're going to be okay. Those are the kind of leaders that we need. Leaders who are courageous enough to challenge the status quo. We can no longer afford to have leaders who think they know it all. Have that beginner's mind that allows you to be curious, to say what else is possible? What else can we do if we want an organization that is going to be relevant, that can be sustained, and can contribute to the future for many, many, many generations to come?
Yeah, but surely that sounds better on the podcast than in real life. Can I think sometimes leaders have fears. I feel like sometimes leaders have some fears on, if I become that authentic leader that is able to say to my team, hey guys, I actually don't know, hey? Or I'm scared, or I'm gonna be transparent about my own fears. Maybe they won't take me as seriously as they need to. No?
Well, so I disagree with you, because what I'm finding more and more in my work is vulnerability is where it's at. When we constantly choose courage over comfort, there's so much more that we can do. So one of my variables was psychological climate. And psychological climate, loosely translated, is what is the weather in this place? What is it like? Is it sunny? Is it cold? Is it stormy? What's going on? We are employing adults in our organizations, adults who think, adults who hold different roles in other spaces. So what that means is you as a leader might think you're in control, you don't show your fear, but we are people, we are perceptive. We can tune into that. We can sense into the system and say, this guy or this woman or this person is not okay. So as a leader, it's in your best interest actually to show up authentically as you and say, yay, comrades, I am not coping. It is tough. You will be surprised at the level of support you get from your people rather than trying to pretend. Another point I want to double click on, we don't need heroes in our leadership. We need leaders who create enabling environments for people to thrive. The study proved it over and over that there is a correlation between all these factors. So as a leader, no more performing. Show up as you. We prefer you.
Just on the psychological climate, what is the effect of the organization, the psychological climate, maybe on some of the outcomes that we are interested in, maybe on satisfaction, engagement, performance even? Do you have a view?
Yes, so we also measured that there is an impact. So if our psychological climate, it's stormy, your productivity is going to tank, okay? Your job satisfaction levels are going to tank. You're going to see that the morale is going to be lower. So we've got studies like your Gallup that looks at engagement scores. And the happier people are at work, the more productive they are, the more committed they are, because it's closely tied to team commitment as well. So the environment that you are creating. So let me give you an example in our day-to-day lives.
Yes.
Women are such powerful beings. So for those who identify as women. So when the mother of the home is angry, man, everybody's going to feel it. Everybody knows that, there is a tsunami in this house. So that's psychological climate. The mother doesn't need to say anything, but you can pick it up that things are not okay. So actually we want to cultivate workspaces where people can speak openly, can speak candidly, and know that they are safe.
What is team commitment?
So team commitment is where people are saying, I believe in the goals of our team, because if we don't know where we're going, any road will do. And ultimately what we're trying to measure there is if a team is saying, these are our values, this is the intention of how we work together, yes, I'm backing you. And in organizations, people often speak about trust, and trust is a key component. And with team commitment, we also see that your trust levels also build up, because you want people that you can count on, that you can trust will have your back. So it could, for example, be you go to a meeting, you're pitching, a concept, and maybe you fumble. Your teammates are there with you, and they are there to rescue and not actually be part of the people that embarrass you. So it shows up in different ways, and you want to be able to build the commitment from others. But to build commitment requires you to then be aligned in terms of where are we going. It's about the behaviors where people say, I buy into this behavior. I can feel that I belong to something much bigger. So yeah, team commitment.
This is so cool. So I've asked you individually about some of the variables you were looking at. Authentic leadership, you've told us about psychological capital, psychological climate, and team commitment, and we now understand what is the intention to quit. Just generally, what were your key findings or insights then from your research?
So from my research, I found that there was a strong correlation between all these variables. So authentic leadership, and I'd love for you, there's free resources. My PhD is online. Articles that I've written after that are online. But essentially, you'll see that the research supports the hypothesis that I'd put forward, that yes, authentic leadership and psychological climate are related. Authentic leadership and team commitment are related. Psychological climate and psychological capital are related. Psychological capital and team commitment are related. So if I just break it down loosely, right, because you can get into all the stats and like the regression and, this is what it showed. But essentially, we're saying if the leader is showing up in the best version of themselves, they are signaling to the rest of the organization in terms of, I have my own psychological capital, which is high. I am mirroring to the rest of the organization that I can be hopeful. I can be resilient. I can actually be confident in doing a task. So I mirror that for everybody. It infuses the climate in which we're operating in. It influences the team commitment that people have. So you can imagine that people will say, I want to be part of this. I want to belong to this organization where we know from the top to the bottom there is that authenticity that is being infused in the system. So it's like the air that we're breathing is supported by these behaviors that are positive and would influence somebody's decision of staying or leaving. Yeah.
This is just, for me, such a great and very key research, and it's just, it actually blows my mind that you were already dealing with this in 2012. I guess those of us who are excited about this now, it's just like, oh my God, Candi, you were doing this thing with 2012. So if I'm listening, I'm the HR executive of one of big organizations, and I'm hearing some really powerful ideas of how this psychological capital and authentic leadership can give me some of these outcomes that I've always wanted. I could be having a question that, firstly, if the climate that I have right now in the organization, the temperature is cold, is not inspiring at all, can I change that? Secondly, can I teach my leaders to have better psychological capital that can then leads to all the outcomes? Is it possible, or is that stuff more innate abilities that other people just have and others don't?
So I'm happy to report that it is something you can develop, right? So my premise is that the future version of you or the future version of our organization, it's already here. It's just unevenly distributed. So what do I mean by that? So we can see the cracks of light in our organization, whether, it shows up every now and then. Maybe it's that person in IT who's excited about a new app that we developed. But other parts of the organization might, be stormy and cold. So we need to recognize the parts of our system that are working and say, okay, so when we understand what is going on, how do we activate? How do we activate an environment where people can thrive? Because we want commitment. With the way the world is changing, people are moving on. People have skills that are portable. But you want people who are able to stay, and not just stay in terms of keeping the seats warm, but staying and contributing in a meaningful way. You're also finding a workforce that is challenging the values. And that's okay. Dissent is not a bad thing. I often say to people, conflict is a data point to say this is no longer working. So by understanding the type of leadership that we have, it's a precursor to that environment that we want, the psychological climate that we're trying to create, the team commitment, the psychological capital. All of that is important. But the journey starts with the individual. And so the opportunity for me, for leaders, is the leadership development that's geared to, number one, emotional intelligence, that's geared to expanding one's understanding of self, that's geared to stepping into vulnerability and being okay with knowing that I am still human and it's just life. The stakes are high, absolutely. But if I am truthful, if I am honest, if I am transparent, I have a better chance than trying to lie. We've seen cases of corruption. We've seen issues where leaders are dishonest and they're caught out. The trust levels reduce. So with what this exploratory study showed was the possibility. It was a crack of light to say, hey, here's evidence that supports that if we do enough work in creating organizations that are healthy, that people actually want to come to, we have a better chance of sustaining a workplace where people do well.
But so you're saying it's also your assertion that if the climate that we have right now is not the one that we want, with the right leadership and whatever, we can convert and sustain it over a longer period.
Absolutely. So it is possible. Leadership development comes in different forms, and it's not new. There's nothing new under the sun. However, we need to be intentional because it's not a one-size-fits-all. And I think it's important to understand, what kind of environment are we having? And what are the bold steps that we need to take? Sometimes it means letting go of that leader who actually creates a culture that we don't want. So the diagnostic phase is important. Let's understand what's happening here. What are the clues that we're getting that help us see that actually this is not good for our organization? And I'll give a few examples. Your turnover rate could be an indicator that tells you that we have a problem. People taking sick leave all the time could also be another indicator. Mental health challenges, which is now actually being magnified and something I'm really excited about, that people are starting to talk, is also another indicator. And also just noticing how meetings go. Is it only one person speaking? Who is the idea generator? So the clues are everywhere. We just need to be curious to notice.
And this is the kind of work that you can help corporates do.
Yes.
I understand you also kind of address these things in conferences as well, as a sought after and highly rated speaker. When you are in conferences, do you speak along those lines, or obviously there's a lot of depth that is sitting there? What are some of the conferences that excite you and some of the topics that excite you in the conference space?
So in the conference space, I'm often invited to talk about how do we move from burnout to well-being? How do we move from career fatigue to spaces where we're actually excited about the work we do? I'm invited to talk about career transitions. I'm, invited to speak about workplaces where people can actually generate a lot of productivity and excitement. And so for me, this study gives me a starting point. And I look at what the client requires, number one. So it's not about jargon, but really helping clients experience these assertions that I'm putting forward. So I'm not going to throw them with big words and say, oh, so now we're psychological capital. Oh, now we're this. But actually speak to them in a language they understand. Speak to them in a context that they understand, that we are here now. And why is it not okay? What are the things that we need to be doing? Bullying is another conversation that comes up quite a bit. And often people are so scared, like, oh, we know there's a bully, but they bring in a lot of income. Come and speak to us about that topic. And at the end of it, people are like, oh my goodness, it was so relatable because you were using examples that we can understand. You were using practical things that we can go back and do, how we set up our meetings. So it's an edutainment kind of vibe that I do.
Yeah, because I find in conferences people kind of panic when they hear someone with a bit of academic rigor. They think, maybe we won't be able to understand and whatever, but these things can be packaged, and you can spark a bit of light in some of your delegates, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so as we nudge ourselves to a close, we normally, at about 9 minutes before we close, that to be exact, we ask what we call fire questions. So it's quick questions with quick answers. These are for our shorts. Ne? Do you call them shorts, those things that we put on where? Where do we put them? TikTok and all of that. So Instagram, they are nice shots. They work well. So quick questions, quick answers, and I'm gonna throw a few of them. Are you ready?
Yeah, ready. Hit me.
If it was in the 80s, you're like, can you feel
it? Yeah! You can see us from that era.
That is so funny. Okay, quick one. In what ways can I improve transparency as a leader without causing fear?
First of all, you need to find people in your organization who are not afraid to give you feedback. Start with one person. No need to start revealing yourself to the whole company. Start with one person and someone who gives concrete feedback.
You spoke about self-awareness, that is a requirement to all the stuff that you've spoken about. How do I even know whether I'm self-aware or not?
So noticing when you wake up in the morning, do a scan of where is my body feeling, or what is my body feeling like right now? Oh, my back, it's sore. Oh, my shoulders. Oh, okay, I seem to have a headache. So just doing that quick body scan, that's practicing self-awareness. It's also saying, when it's so cold and I am late for work, I notice these are the behaviors that follow. So start paying attention, because the data is always there. Pay attention.
How do I create a posture of hope and optimism? Maybe just one idea that you can give me to become that type of a leader that can maybe cultivate my own hope, or at least have that posture of hope and optimism in the workplace.
So when I look at different issues happening in the workplace, you have a default answer. Challenge yourself to think differently about the answer you have. It could be your performance as a business. If I challenge myself to think differently, what is possible? It's amazing what we can achieve when we start imagining a different reality.
Sure. How do I create a supportive and inclusive work environment?
Find people around you, people who are not afraid to give you feedback. It will sting, because we're human, but it's okay. So your eyes might redden, but your tears will not blind you. So the truth must be told, no matter how harsh it is. It may redden your eyes, but it will not blind you.
You've mentioned a few clues that we can look at that should prompt us to say there's something there. What are some of the other clues that make people pick up the call and call you that they see in the workplace?
They pick up the energy from my voice. When they watch a video, they see that I live what I work in, what I preach. That is me. And for those who have had the opportunity to work with me in person, the experience makes them keep calling over and over.
How do I know that an employee is dissatisfied? This satisfaction stuff sounds weird. Can I sense, can I know as an employer that this one is not satisfied?
So the gift of feedback, what are we seeing? When I'm talking to the person, what do they look like? Are they just quiet? They never smile. They don't nod. No reaction from that person. They've checked out. Body is here, but the mind has left the building. Also, quality of work. How much work are they doing? How many mistakes are they bringing in? What is going on there? Absenteeism is another clue. So look for those things that are objective. Attendance, performance, and just when you're engaging, what is the kind of response that you're getting from them?
And then maybe lastly, why is it that everything that we've said so far is more generally about the leader? Where's the employee ownership? Where is, I think you call it psychological ownership and an agency for people, just for them to show up as well? Why is it the leader's fault?
You are also a leader. Each and every one of us is a leader in our own right. So leader might refer to the one in charge, but I am a leader in terms of how I decide to show up, how I decide to do my work, how I decide to speak up and say, no, this is not okay. So leadership is not only reserved for the one who holds the title, it's all of us.
Guys, everyone in the room, can you hear how Dr. Sharon is responding to our fire questions? It's definitely fire. It's like, yay. All right, maybe final thoughts. This has been one of those amazing episodes. Is there anything else that you'd just like to share with our audience around the importance of positivity in the workplace and maybe debunking that idea that my daughter calls it toxic positivity, that people just, they think what we mean is that we don't want to hold space for people to voice out if they are maybe discouraged or whatever. Anything around positive scholarship that you would like to leave our audience with?
Well, first of all, your child is a leader. I love it for her. And very smart, absolutely. Because the toxic positivity, man, it's a problem. It's not about singing Kumbaya. It's being able to hold the positive and the negative. It's being able to objectively understand and hear without replying, listening from a place of understanding, and also being okay with saying, I don't know what I don't know. Being okay as a leader to say, I made a mistake, please help me. And that is where we come in as coaches, to be a thinking partner that supports you. That is where we have performance reviews with the 360 feedback reviews that help you to understand. That's where we have psychometric assessments that gives us a clue into how we show up, how we respond to certain situations, because it's all part of building the self-awareness. We do not have the capacity to know everything. Better together, we can create a world where all of us can thrive.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I guess lastly, how do we work with you? If there's an event organizer listening to our podcast today and say, I'm intrigued, maybe I want to have you at the conference, or maybe in an organization, how do we work with you? Or you have enough money, you don't need more work?
So the joy or the trap of this work is that I'm constantly in service of the system, right? So if you just Google Dr. Sharon Munyaka, you will find me on my socials, on LinkedIn, Dr. Sharon Munyaka, on our website, smunyakainc.co.za, Twitter, we got you. Just reach out and let's co-create a future for your organization.
Ladies and gentlemen, often I need to even have some closing jingle. I think we don't need anything today. It was an amazing episode. Thanks for tuning in. Please remember to hit that subscribe button. It makes a difference for people to find us. Share this episode widely because I think these are the types of episodes that can help us understand that work does not have to be a drag. Work does not have to suck. That there is more good in human beings and that we can find them. So tune in next time, then let's help each other to make sure that our workplaces are workplaces where people can thrive. That's it. We are out. Please give me that.